Hello?
Yeah, I can hear you fine.
Okay.
I'm just going through my setup. Okay. We got 1 minute. All right. Should be coming up now. Hopefully the volume is up pretty good. It is 9 o'clock, and welcome to Celebrating Fatherhood 365. I have a first on my show. Well, not really a first because I think she's been here before and we've had a group discussion before. But tonight I have a special guest, and we're going to be talking about celebrating fatherhood. How are you doing this evening? Is it okay if I use your first name?
Yes, that's fine.
Dominique. She is my guest. Um, and a lot of times we talk about on here dysfunctional fathers, and most of us grew up with dysfunctional fathers. But the purpose of the show is to, even if we talk about dysfunctional fathers, we talk about the impact of that and the responsibility of that for the next generation to improve and to learn. So, Dominique, I know your story, but I'm going to ask you questions like I don't know your story. So, feel free to chime in. How are you doing this evening?
I'm all right. I'm doing fine.
Okay, I think you might be a little bit too hot. Say something again.
I said I'm doing fine.
Oh, good. Okay. Yeah, I had you a little bit too hot, so I wanted to bring it down a little bit. So we are on Facebook, we are on YouTube, and we are on Zoom. And we always ask people to like, share, and subscribe. Even on Facebook, we want you to follow. We have people come back afterwards sometimes and watch the program, or at least watch it long enough to get counted. So we want to be consistent with shows. I did not come on last week, did not have a guest, and I was a little talked out. So Dominique, tell us a little bit of your story, how you grew up. Where did you grow up at?
Um, well, I'm from Brooklyn. I'm from New York, but I grew up in Richmond.
You grew up in Richmond?
Yeah.
Okay, born and raised in Richmond?
No, I was born in New York.
Born where?
In New York. Can you hear me?
New York. Yeah, I can hear you. Not as loud. Hold on, I'm gonna turn it up a little bit. Okay, say so. Say so.
Yeah. Yeah. Can you hear me better now?
Yes.
Okay.
Can you hear me? Okay.
Yes, I can hear you fine.
Wonderful, wonderful. Okay. So you said you were originally from New York, but you were raised here in Richmond, Virginia.
Correct.
Would you consider your family to be functional or dysfunctional?
Dysfunctional.
Dysfunctional. Okay. How did that impact you growing up?
Um, my mom and dad separated and divorced. Um, and my father was kind of controlling, and my mom was on drugs and an abusive relationship. So it impacted me and my sister a lot. Uh,
Okay. So if I heard you correctly, father dysfunctional, mom was in a abusive relationship,
correct. Yep.
and that's how you came to live in Richmond, Virginia.
No, that isn't how I came. My dad found a job out here in Richmond, and we moved from New York to Richmond.
Okay. But you did not move with him originally when he moved, right? He came back
No,
and got you.
I did. No, 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 no. I lived with my mother and my father um up until I was about in first grade in Virginia, and then they
First,
separated. When I
first
was in
grade.
New York, when we were in New York, we lived together. They
Okay.
didn't divorce until I was like fifth grade.
Fifth
I want to
grade.
say,
So
yeah,
your mother,
I
so your mother
remember.
was here in Richmond.
Yeah, yep,
Okay. Okay. Okay.
yep.
I'm learning something. Okay. So when did you notice something was wrong or something was dysfunctional within your family? Because a lot of times with kids, we see it as normal because that's how we're being raised. But did you notice early on the dysfunction, or did you think it was normal?
Um, I would say that it wasn't normal. It became my norm. Like when I was in middle school, my mother was not. She was just very aggressive and loud and um abusive towards me and my sister. Um, my dad kind of stepped in when I was in high school, uh, going to high school, and got us from my mother. The dysfunction started, I would say, with them two when
Yeah.
like when they would argue when I was younger, but it wasn't. To me, it was nothing because it was my parents
Right. Right.
doing
You
what
saw
they
it as
normally
normal.
do.
It became your normal.
Right, right.
Okay. Okay. Now I gotta ask, but seeing the dysfunction within them and growing up with it, and then you mentioned earlier that your mother was in an abusive relationship. How does that impact you today?
Her being in an abusive relationship.
No, the dysfunction that you grew up with. We still, I mean, of course, an abusive relationship is dysfunctional. But what I'm looking at is how did the dysfunction that you grew up with, that it became your norm, how is that impacting you today?
It made me think of what I don't want in my relationships with other people. The things that they did to me let me know how I want to deal with my children and how it was it's actually pretty easy to deal with kids. Like I wasn't a bad kid or anything. It was them not being able to regulate their emotions and deal with their own stress and trauma. It wasn't me as the problem. So it makes it a little easier when it comes to me dealing with my children.
Okay, okay, okay. So do you find question? Do you think that you are completely healed from it, or do you still see some residuals from it?
Um, I don't think that anybody can be completely healed from anything. I don't think no, I don't think I'm completely healed from it because it comes up like different things in my everyday, well, not everyday life, but things can happen in life and it will remind me of what happened in my past, and I have to remember that I'm not there no more.
Right, right.
So I have to deal with it, and it makes you have to deal with that and resolve it within yourself so that you can become a better person.
Well, that right there is a healed person because you recognize it and you're able to make a better choice or a different choice. Because
Yeah,
one of the things that I teach a lot is hurt people, but healed people heal people. That's one of the mantras we
I
have on
agree.
our shirt. So the fact that you recognize the dysfunction when it's presented to you or in your presence, and you're able to pivot, that lets me know that there's a healing process taking place. I believe that you can't be completely healed from situations. I don't believe that it's a life sentence. No
True.
matter how severe the dysfunction is, at some point in time it becomes a choice.
Correct. I agree.
because it's not what happens to you that defines you. It's always your response.
And how you handle it.
How you respond will define you long term more so than, because it's almost like this. Something happened to me when I was a child, and I'm 40 years old, 50 years old, and I'm still blaming that other person for what happened to me. That's why I do the things I do. You see what I'm saying?
Yeah.
That sounds kind of silly, doesn't it?
Right. Because you're using an excuse for the reason that you behave the way that you do, even though that has
Absolutely.
happened already. You're
Absolutely.
using an excuse for your behavior. That's not right.
No, because the fact that I'm able to recognize it says that, okay, so you are conscious of it. It's not
Right.
like you say, well, why did I do that? I have no clue as to why I did that or what's going on. And that would put you suspect as well if you were unconsciously doing things as well. But a lot of people go through those emotional things, and that's why I like talking about this topic on this show, because not everybody comes from a functional family. There is measures
Right.
of dysfunction out there, but it's not what happens to you that defines you. It's always our response to it that makes a difference. And I got that from Dr. Stephen Covey, who wrote 7 Habits of Highly Effective People. That's one of the things he said that I really like, because, we can't control what happened to us growing up as children, but we can control the impact it has on us now as adults.
Right. Because it's a choice. Because
Yeah.
we can't use our past as a reason for what we're doing now. We have to change it.
So, do you find that in your parenting yourself, because you are a mother of two, that sometimes you regress, or do you catch yourself before the regression occurs with the
I
dysfunction?
would say both. I would say
Okay.
both because I have seen myself catch myself before reacting to something that my kids may do that bother me. Um, but then there's things that they do that I just won't correct, and it's just a learning process. I think it's a learning process for the both of us because they teach me things on a daily basis. Like you can learn things from children, and I think we start to realize that as adults. Like we we think sometimes that we know everything because we're adults, but the truth is like children can teach us things as well.
Right. Right. Sometimes we do think we know everything, but then sometimes we realize that life will remind us that we don't. And
Right,
to me, it's about us healing through the process called life. And how do we do that? That's the most important thing. And some people need therapy, some people get therapy. You've gotten therapy in the past. What was your experience with that? Did that help, or
um,
not?
I think it helped because it was therapy for me individually and with my marriage. So I think therapy helps in the sense of you recognizing the things that you do
Right.
and how you can change things within yourself to make the relationships around you better.
Right. Because that's the only thing you can change is you. You can't
Yep.
change the other person at all. I think that it helps you to grow, because one of the things we talk about on here a lot with celebrating fatherhood is it starts with the individual before it can impact the family, and then as it impacts the family, it moves into the community, and then society as a whole, because you're teaching other people as well. But a lot of
Right.
people who live in dysfunction, they don't do the work, on self to improve. Because I'm gonna ask you a question, see if you can get this right. Because you've taken my class before. What is your number one job as a parent?
To take care of yourself,
Yes,
mom. Huh?
self care, 100%
Yeah.
self care. Take care of yourself. Most parents think that it's everybody else or someone else or even their children, but you have to get good at self care before you can help your children.
Right. And I think that's where a lot of women fail is because of not even, it's not just what we think, but in society standards on how we should take care of our kids, take care of our kids, make sure our kids are good, make sure our kids are good. But if we don't make sure we're good, then how are our children going to be fine? And not in a selfish way where you're just doing only for you and not for your kids. But what I'm saying is if your mental is not okay, how are you going to be able to navigate with your kids when they become that age and they go through the same thing, or like they have different issues. You're not going to be able to resolve them if you don't resolve them with yourself.
100%. 100%. Self care is the most important. However, most people don't practice it at all. Um, Question: is it possible? This is your opinion. Is it possible for you, as a mother, as a human being, to teach your children love if you don't first love yourself?
No,
And what do you
because
think
how
is?
can I
What do
teach?
you think the greatest demonstration of love is?
You have to love yourself. You can't demonstrate something that you're not able to do. If you're not able, that's like me not being able to read, but I'm gonna attempt to teach my daughter how to read.
Right, right.
Unless we're gonna learn it together somehow, navigating through life. That's like having a child really young and you're a baby yourself. It's not. It's kind of difficult when you have a if you have a kid and you're 13 and you haven't lived to be an adult. If you can't, it's that's hard. So I don't think that you're able to teach love if you don't love yourself.
Difficult to do. Difficult to do. I cut my camera off by mistake. Um, yeah, I don't see it as being possible either to do that. To love yourself. I mean, if you don't love yourself, if you can't forgive yourself, because forgiveness is the greatest demonstration of love. You got to learn to forgive yourself, for even forgive your parents for what they did not teach you,
Yep.
and then you are in a better position to work with your children and teach your children the things that they need to learn in order for them to grow. I have someone popping in on Zoom. I'm going to let them in, but more than likely they're not going to say anything right away. I just wanted to let you know. Um, I'm going to admit them now. And yep. Hey Nick, this is AJ. Just wanted to let you know I have a guest on tonight on phone. Her name is Dominique, and she's talking about we're actually talking about dysfunctional families, okay, and how we grew up. So feel free to chime in if you want to. If you just want to listen, that's fine too. All right, Dominique.
Yes, I'm here.
All right. First of all, I want to thank you again for agreeing to come on. I know sometimes when we have conversations, you're like trying to figure out what I'm going to say because you never know what kind of questions I'm going to ask you.
I don't.
So I just want you to be relaxed. I'm gonna throw you some softballs tonight. I'm not. Hopefully, it won't get too deep with you at all. But yes, this is part of the process here. I'm not going to get into your personal situation too much unless you bring it up, unless you want to talk about it. But
I think it's helpful for people to know what um things that are deep. It helps. It helps others that are going through things.
say again.
It helps. I said it helps other people, like real stuff,
Yeah,
like deep issues. It helps other people resolve their own.
yeah. So let me ask you a question then, since you brought that up. Moving from a dysfunctional, let's say, father to a husband, and that relationship, would you consider that relationship to be dysfunctional as well?
It was. I think it's what it is now still, but we're trying to work through it.
You say it started wrong.
No, no, no. I said it was. It was dysfunctional.
Oh,
Both
okay, okay.
relationships were dysfunctional, but we're trying to work through it now.
Yeah. So how much? I mean, I've seen the change and the growth over the years, but how much like your father did you see in your husband as far as the dysfunction goes, or was it similar or different?
Mm, ooh, that's a hard question.
Well,
Um,
because a lot of times in the first marriage, children tend to marry their parents. Like you will marry a
yeah,
husband who has the same characteristics. I pretty much married my mother the first time.
I think so. I mean, some of the stuff is dysfunctional. Like, what I noticed at one point was that neither one of them take accountability and they blame other people for their actions. However, I'm seeing my ex husband work through some of that stuff. Like he's actually trying. So they can't. Then
He's
really,
actually
they're not the
trying. You
same
say he's
people.
actually trying now, or he's been trying from the beginning?
No, he's trying now. I see him trying now.
Oh,
And
okay.
like trying to be a better father for his children. I don't think that he was a good father before because my dad. Well, okay, my dad is very controlling. However, I had a stepfather, and he was very abusive, and that's who my mother was with. He was very abusive and in and out of jail. He was very dysfunctional. That's similar to my ex husband as well. But the person that I see that he's trying to be is better than he was before.
Right.
So what he's attempting to do is something that he didn't even have growing up. He didn't have a great role model either.
Right. So yeah, because I
So
talk about that a lot. Parental fears and who taught you how to be a parent. Because if you grew up in dysfunction, then it's normal. Really, you've normalized that dysfunction, like you said.
right,
Then that dysfunction becomes so normal that when you see the right thing, you almost feel obligated to reject it because this is not my norm. I'm not used to this. You know what I'm saying?
right, right,
Yeah, dysfunction will do that to you. It can cause you. That's why I believe therapy is always important to help you to do a reset and a refocus, a reframing of what looks normal, what is normal. And hopefully we get better as we get older. And one of the things I say in my class, see if you remember this one: what's not transformed gets transferred.
right.
You heard that before?
I did.
What's not transformed gets transferred. So we have to renew our minds and like you say, catch yourself from and stop yourself from being dysfunctional so that we can be a better example to our children
Right.
as they grow. Because yeah, dysfunction is very common. And like you said, I like what you said. It became your norm. You're just so used to it. And what made you realize that it was dysfunctional? When did you first come to realize that this is not how normal families? I'm looking at you as a child. At what age did you realize that this is not normal behavior?
I think when I was going through it, it wasn't normal. It was normal in the sense that I was going through it on a daily basis. But when I was like, I would say around 12, 13, my stepdad and my mom are fighting every day. I actually used to run away from home. I started being promiscuous. I started doing different things due to what was going on in my household. And it
Right,
was a reflection of the things that were happening in my house. Like there was people in and out of my house all the time. It was fighting all the time. My sister's scared. I'm just like I was very defensive I remember me being very defensive, and no one could really talk to me. Like, I was a very sweet person, but it was getting to the point that my dad, when I would go to my dad's house, my father would see that me and my sister weren't really speaking. We would just go into our rooms and we were hungry all the time. And it was because we weren't really eating at my mom's.
Oh wow.
And there was a lot. Like, there was, and it wasn't that we weren't speaking to each other. He just seen a change in our behavior. It was like these two girls that used to play all the time and joke and just turned into silence. Like, they just, the behavior of us was different. And
Right.
my dad had got us from my mom because me and my stepdad got into a fight, and he did something inappropriate to me. And
Yeah.
from there my mom just went to New York, and
Do you
um
feel as though
and
she
my grandmother
chose
came.
him and the dysfunction over choosing her children,
um
or was she conscious of that choice?
I don't think she was conscious because she was on drugs. So
Oh,
somebody that's on drugs and is drinking and doing, and she had MS. So I don't think, and my grandmother went through the same thing. So I don't think she knew how to to navigate. I don't think she really knew or was aware of what she was doing because it was done to her, and she felt like that was okay because it was done to her. Because she said something like that before, like, "Oh, I went through it," or something like that
yeah.
before.
Well,
So
that goes back to what I said earlier. What's not transformed gets transferred. So
right.
unconsciously, she
So
was making a transfer to you and your sister to be and do the same thing.
yep, yep,
To me, from a spiritual standpoint, it almost sounds like a generational curse in which it gets passed down. But you were able to, from what you're saying, you were able to navigate that and change that. Do you think that a lot of the dysfunction you grew up with is, do you see that being transferred to your daughter and your son, or do you see it as they are not living in that dysfunction?
I think that is better than when I was younger because me and their father are actually trying to work through things versus not doing anything at all or just arguing and fighting. Like, we just had a conversation about how we need to be on the same page.
Right, right. Even though now part of dysfunction is separation and divorce, but
Oh well,
people can heal from that. You know, it's not
yeah,
like there's any abuse or sexual abuse or molestation and anything crazy like that going on within the family structure now.
yeah,
So that's a blessing right there. But the things that you guys are experiencing is their new norm. The dysfunction is
right.
becoming their new norm. So the goal is, this my opinion too, would be to how do we help them heal from that, from the dysfunction that they are experiencing themselves. What do you think we
You
need to
talking about
do?
my children?
Yes, yes,
Um, well, I think me and their dad need to work together and show them be better examples so that they can work together and create better relationships with our kids and with each other.
absolutely. That is it right there. Be better examples. We talked about in parenting class tonight the attributes of love and showing love and teaching love. And the greatest attribute of love is forgiveness. So let me ask you a question. I've experienced this myself, but have you asked your children for forgiveness?
Yes, I've apologized to them and asked them if they forgive me.
I did that with my kids, and I did it so much they told me, please don't say it again. Daddy, we know you did okay, Daddy. Please don't ask us again. And I wanted to do it until they felt that, because number one, it didn't happen the first time. it was many years before they told me, please don't ask us for forgiveness again. You know what I'm saying? Because at 4 and 5 and 7 years old, you know, they wanted, number one, all they wanted was their mom and daddy back together. That's
Right.
all they wanted. That's all they talked about. So that left a hole in their heart and dysfunction. So, but I think as time went on and they became 11, 12, 13, they realized that it wasn't going to happen. And it was maybe for the best that it did not happen. You know, so it takes time. And I always tell parents we have to teach that until you don't just say it one time. Because
Yeah, they, I,
children, no matter how dysfunctional parents are, they want their parents together.
and it's okay that we're together separately because I think it's better for us to be how we are now because it's healthier for
Co-parenting.
them. Right.
Yeah, and I teach a lesson on co-parenting called Mom's World, Dad's World, in which a lot of we have to learn to live separate lives, but we come together for the sake of the children. But when the kids
Right.
are at mom's house, mom's rules. Mom is either, even if mom is dysfunctional or functional, and even when the kids are at dad's house, dad rules, even if it's dysfunctional. So we can't really cross that line too much, especially when the kids are younger. You know the number one reason why I say don't cross that line when the children are younger?
Wow.
Children tend to manipulate their parents.
I just was talking about this.
They will
Oh
go
my goodness.
they will go to one parent and say blah blah blah, daddy did this, daddy said this, I don't like what daddy do this. Then they'll go to mommy and say, mommy, no, they go to daddy and say, mommy said this, mommy did this, I don't like when mommy do this. And now we got y'all two mad at each other, not wanting to talk to one
Arguing.
another because the kids are the Spengalis in the whole thing, you know. I see that happen a lot. Children will manipulate if you let them, and that's why I say, man, mom's world, dad's world. So when the kids are at your house, we don't discuss anything negative about dad. I'm going to teach you how to deal with difficult people. If you think the situation is difficult, then let me teach you how to talk. Let me teach you how to ask questions. Let me teach you how to resolve it. Versus you getting emotionally invested in that rhetoric. You know what I'm saying? Because the kids will sit back and look
Yep.
at you guys.
Yep.
Have you noticed that within your kids?
Yeah, they my daughter, I would say I seen some of that. But I felt like it was her dad that was manipulating her.
I need you to speak up a little
Um,
bit because your voice dropped down.
oh, I said it was. I seen a lot of that in my daughter, but I felt as though it was her dad that was manipulating her. Um, it wasn't necessarily them manipulating us, but they can do that if you allow them to. They can go back and forth and say, "Oh, I don't like this," and then we're arguing or something. I
Absolutely, absolutely. That
yeah,
happens. My kids did it. You know, I had to shut it down. So I know that's just a propensity for children to do those types of things, and that's why it's important for parents to have that separation, mom's world, dad's world. But in the same token, we have to become conscious of the behaviors of the children and what they bring to the relationship and what you bring to the relationship. Because part of your number two job is to teach, and you know, a lot of times we don't do that. So you know, and here's the thing too: being conscious and being transparent. When when I was separated, going through the divorce, and before I got remarried, and even prior relationships, my children never saw me with other people because I was afraid of the attachments that they would gain from that. That leads to dysfunction as well.
yeah.
Now I know we
And then
disagree
they
on
have
that.
somebody. No, I understand what you're saying because it has somebody's coming in and then when they step out, they no longer see them. So it's like, dang, I thought this person cared about me and they really don't.
Right. What do you think the unconscious message is when when you have that happen in your life?
Um, you mean me as a child or me as an adult? What do you mean?
The child. What do you think the unconscious lesson is for them when they see that?
That people are gonna just leave me.
People are going to
It's
be
it's
what?
it's people are gonna just leave them. Like it creates abandonment issues.
Yeah, it does. I'm glad you said that because I always think about it in terms of, people, we call them army brats, and they move every three to 4 years to a different base, to a different location.
Oh
So they have very
yeah,
few attachments. They don't know what it means to have a lifetime friend.
yeah.
So relationships to them become very disposable and sometimes transactional because that's how they had to protect themselves from being too transparent, too open. Because if I open up too much with this person, and you're gonna leave anyway, so why take the risk? You know, I always look at it from a military standpoint, and to be completely transparent in my situation, my parents divorced when I was 5, and from 5 to 18, my 13 years, my mother had 8 boyfriends lived in with us. 8. Now you now you see the impact. So you see why I said I don't want people around my children, because I know
Yeah.
what it did to me and how I felt growing through that dysfunction. It was just, to me, it just did not make sense. And some came within a month of each other. You get
Oh, that's
used to
crazy.
this one, and next thing you know, there's another one. Then there's another one. It was not years in between; it was months in between. So relationships is like, okay, here's another one. Okay, how long he gonna be here? You know, it leads to a lot of dysfunction. These are things that fathers especially need to think about, and I would say mothers too. But we are examples to our children. I don't want to be an example of dysfunction. You agree or disagree?
I agree.
I know we had some conversations about that before. You remember? You didn't agree with
Um.
me before.
Oh no, I mean, I understand both sides. It's not that I don't. It's not that I didn't agree. I understand the impact that it can have on kids when somebody's not in it long term. Because there's always going to be when two parents are not together anymore, they're bound to have partners. But what are those partners? What are they doing with those two partners? Are they trying to marry one another to stay long term? Because like, what is that? That matters too, because the parents are gonna have partners. But I don't know.
Yeah, I mean, I dated when my children, but I did not date when I had my children with me. If I saw my kids every other weekend, then I made sure I dated every other weekend. I did not date when my children were with me. That's the most important or significant thing for me. You know, Even when my kids lived with me, I never brought anybody home to meet them, except for one. And they ride me about that to this day. I catch grief about that to this day.
That's funny.
Yeah, they'll never let me forget
Oh,
it. Oh, you
I
know who I'm
think I
talking
know.
about. You know
I
exactly who
think
I'm
I
talking about.
know.
Yep. To this day, I'm still catching it. Talking about that relationship. So it happens, but my thing is we need to grow from the dysfunction and not always present dysfunction to our children and help them to grow. If you're joining me for the first time now, I have as my guest Dominique. She's on the phone with me, and we have Nick on Zoom, who's just sitting in with me. He sits in from time to time. Nick, you have any comments or anything? If put a thumbs up if you're good. If you want to say something, like I said, feel free to chime in. I just wanted to let the audience know that who we were. I'm the host AJ, and this is Celebrating Fatherhood 365. And I'm not afraid to deal with the dysfunction in fathers, because we all grew up with it. Nick, you have something you want to share?
No, I'm just kind of listening in, just kind of tuning in, hoping for some positivity. Don't have a whole lot to add today, just kind of listening to young lady's story, but dysfunction, it's
Yeah,
always, just trying to not pass that along to the children is, the goal for me at
absolutely.
least, coming from dysfunction myself, you can't transfer that to the kid.
No, you should not. But a lot of times, unfortunately, we do transfer it because it's unconscious. We're not even realizing it. Because like she said, you weren't with us from the beginning, but that dysfunction became her norm.
Exactly.
I
And it's,
couldn't hear what he said.
You know, you could not.
Yeah, I can't hear him.
Oh, okay, okay. So that's good for me to know. I'll make sure I fix that problem next week. Okay. Well, he was basically just agreeing with you and what you said, and we talked about fixing the dysfunction within families. So I think I know where the problem is. I need to make sure I have another microphone. All right. Well, Dominique, is there anything else you can think of you would like to say? I'm not gonna call these your final words because we're not shutting down yet. We got about 15 minutes left. Any thoughts that come to mind? Anything that you want to share at this point in time before we move forward?
Um, is it possible for us to talk about, I don't know, like a stepdads and stepmothers and stuff like that, and blending families,
Talk about what now?
blending families?
Blending families. Absolutely. That is the next step. And believe it or not, there are a lot of blended families these days. That has become the norm. Blended families. But there's still levels
Well,
of dysfunction within those families too, aren't there?
there is. There is.
Because if the parents are not on the same page with consequences and behaviors, that can cause division within the home. I saw. I don't know if it wasn't on TikTok, but I saw a little skit where this stepfather was trying to correct the woman's son, and she told him, "Don't talk to my son like that. You're not his father. I don't want you to do that."
Oh,
Right?
oh, wow.
And she did it twice. He had did something. I think he had lied to her. He was disrespectful to her, and he tried to check him, the son. And then the third image was him. He had packed his bag and he was leaving. He said, "I got to go. I can't handle this. It's too much for me. And by the way, your son's in jail for carrying a gun." And he walked out the door.
Oh, wow.
I said,
Oh,
"Wow."
wow.
It wasn't that long of a skit, but it was like, that's a stepfather. You know, unless the woman is willing to allow him to bring correction and instruction to the child, then it can lead the child down the wrong path because now he can manipulate the mother to get what he wants. Or in a blended family situation, that other child who can manipulate the father to get what they want. Because a lot of times, and I hate to say this, but a lot of parents, they parent out of guilt.
Yeah, I agree. I've seen that working with autism kids.
Yeah. But my thing is this, and I could Maybe I could have justified feeling guilty in my relationships, but I said it's not my job to feel guilty. My job is to teach.
Right.
So I focus on teaching and not feeling guilty. I wanted to make sure that what happened to them, the dysfunction, was not going to be their norm. And they were going to learn how to overcome. So I had to teach. Now, if I'm parenting out of guilt, then I think I'm doing them a disservice. Would you agree?
I agree. And she not allowing him, first of all, his father should be correcting him, yes. But his father's not there. So if he's going to correct him, you should allow him to correct him because he's wrong. And
Yes.
if you disagree, then you talk about that away from the child. And
Right.
y'all resolve it then, not in front of the child, because then the child can get over on both of you because you're not in agreement.
Absolutely. Because the child was actually being disrespectful to his wife. And he didn't like it. He tried to bring correction, but she got offended because that wasn't his child.
But
So
that's not right.
that's crazy to me. That's his wife. Regardless, that might be his mother, but it's first and foremost that's his wife. And he just gave up because he says this is not going to work. This is not going to work.
I think a lot of women do that. Well, I'm not going to say a lot of women because I don't know all the women in the world.
Well, a lot is not all. We didn't say all. You said a lot.
Yeah,
That's the difference. So you can look at percentages.
when women are by themselves, well, she was married to the man, so I don't even understand how that's okay. But that probably was going on for a long time. But I think women sometimes put their sons in the role of a man of the house, and it's
Yes.
inappropriate. And when a man actually comes into the house, you're trying to replace him in a sense. So now your son feels entitled to still do what he's been doing because you've been allowing him to do so. And that's
Right.
incorrect when you're the leader of the household, even if his father is no longer present or available. Like that, you're the leader. So it should never, I don't know. That's messed up.
Yeah, it is. But blended families is a reality of the day, but a lot of times they don't work unless the child was blended when they were younger. They tend to work better than a father or a mother coming in when the children are teenagers or
Older.
9, 10, 11, when they know and they have a relationship with their biological fathers or mothers. It's harder, but if the child is younger, it seems to be a little easier to blend. That's just been my experience. I'm not saying that all are like that, but that's been my experience with blended families. It can be challenging, even in my situation, I never tried to correct. I would go to the mother and let her do the correcting, because I knew that I was going to instantly get pushback from the child.
Unless you have a relationship with the child, like if you have a strong relationship with the child, then the child's going to listen to you.
Right. But that takes time to build, and you can build it,
Yeah,
but you're not going to build it with being controlling.
yeah.
You're not going to build it being fear-based in your parenting style. You can build the influence, because as she got older, we would go out to eat, and then we would talk while we were eating, and mom wasn't around, nobody else was around, it was just she and I, and we have a great relationship to this day, so that is the way I chose to navigate it. A lot of people want to come in and say, I'm the parent, you're the child. That's not going to work when you're dealing with a blended family. Because a lot of times, now we're talking about blending yours and mine, but what about this yours, mine, and ours? That's a whole nother blend because now you come with two, I come with two, and then we have two together or one together. That's difficult as well because now you got children feeling as though they're not getting the attention that they used to get from when you were a single parent. And what do
Yeah,
children do when they don't get attention in the home? They fight each other.
it's like act out. Yep.
They fight. They tend to fight the child who they feel as though is getting the most attention, and it becomes very, very negative in the home. That's why I tell people I don't have favorites. I love all my kids. And it hurts a child when you have a favorite child too. Believe it or not, it messes with their self-esteem when they don't feel that love, that unconditional, balanced love.
Well, some parents they don't treat both, like me and my sister. We don't have we were not treated the same. I
You and your
we were
sister
not.
what?
I said me and my sister were not treated the same.
Did y'all fight when y'all were younger?
When we a little bit, we fought a little bit when we were young. I think it got worse as I got older. Like when I was in high school and my
Yeah.
stepmom came around. Um, but it was on her end. We're a little better now that we're older.
Of course, you're
But
older now. You're grown, so it can get better over time, but sometimes it gets worse. And then
yeah,
children grow up and don't even speak to one another.
yeah, we went through that. We did not speak for a while.
You did not? Oh wow. Okay.
Yeah, we didn't speak. He it was over my mom's death certificate. She
Uh,
wouldn't give me. She would not let me make a copy of my mother's death certificate. And I didn't have a car at the time, and I still was. I actually had the Jeep that you gave me to borrow, and I was gonna get the death certificate from her and make a copy. And we stopped speaking because of how she treated me.
oh wow.
We got into
And
an
you're the
argument.
oldest too, right?
Yeah, but later
Okay.
on in life, she matured a little bit more and apologized for that. But we're not speaking again because of something else. So I don't really,
Dysfunctional relationships.
I don't really,
That's what it's
care.
called. When there's dysfunction, there's something wrong. It's a breakdown in communication, dysfunctional. It's
Yeah,
unfortunate, but it happens in families. That's why it's important for everyone to practice self care and to grow within your mind, your body, your spirit, and your finances. I almost feel like I'm teaching parenting class now. I've been talking about this stuff so much this hour. It's amazing. But when I've been teaching for since 2009, I'm teaching for a long time, so it just comes out of me nowadays. I don't even really think about it's just who I am. It's
yeah.
weird to me now. Sometimes I hear myself say, "Man, it sounds like parenting class" when I'm talking to people. Yep. Well, I appreciate you coming on and sharing with us about your dysfunction within your family system growing up. Even have marriage that is dysfunctional, but you guys are trying to grow through it. And I would encourage you to hang in there, continue to grow, set boundaries, keep boundaries, be respectful. And I think it'll get better over time, especially if it's a fresh uh, divorce. It's almost like going through death, experiencing death. The grieving process is pretty much the same when you go through a divorce.
Hmm.
Yeah, so it's very emotionally driven. That's why if you practice and you set boundaries now, within 3 years, 4 years, 5 years, things will tend to get better, and you may be able to get in a place where y'all can tolerate being in the same room together.
We're trying.
Yeah, that
We're
might
we're
be that
trying. We
might be
do set
difficult and
boundaries.
challenging now, but it comes with setting boundaries.
Yeah, we do. We do that.
Yep. and then everybody keeping their word, being
Yep.
consistent, being predictable. All of that matters. That's why core values. I tell parents we teach them. We have to teach them to our children. But the hardest part of teaching core values to children, you know what it is?
What is it?
What do you think it is?
Um, you have to have core values
Modeling.
yourself. I don't know what that. Oh
Modeling.
yeah. Yeah.
You have to do it yourself. That's the hard part about teaching core values, because once I tell a child this is important, then they have to see me do it. And a lot of times parents don't model. We tell our children to do it. You know, it's hard to teach a child integrity if we don't have any integrity, you know?
Yeah.
Very difficult to do. Well, look, I appreciate you coming on. It is almost 10 o'clock, but we're going to shut down tonight. Dominique, appreciate you coming on and sharing with me. Nick, I appreciate you coming on and sharing. And for anyone who is watching this as a pre-recorded, please feel free to like, share, and subscribe, and go to our website. If you'd like to be a guest on the show, you can let me know. I'd love to interview and talk. Dominique, you are the first woman that came on to interview, and I appreciate it. I'm going to try to get some kids to come over and talk about their father, their dysfunction within their father. Dominique, I have one more question for you. With dysfunction of your father,
Mm-hmm.
do you think there's hope that he will ever change?
No.
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 And have you accepted the fact that he will never change?
Yes.
Good. Because if you haven't accepted the fact, then you'll be upset about it.
Yeah. You said say that again?
I said if you had not accepted the fact, then you would probably be upset about it. You know,
Oh,
a lot
yep.
of people get upset. Go ahead.
And me accepting it does not mean that I have to tolerate it. So
Absolutely
I don't
not.
have to be around it and and accept it.
You're
bad
right. You're
behavior.
right. But you do see him from time to time, though, correct?
I call him and check on him every couple of years or something like
Did
that.
you say
but
every
we don't
couple of
really-
years?
I mean, every year, maybe a couple months. I don't really go and see him.
Oh, does he come see you?
No.
Does he call you?
No.
See, when we talk about love is both parties sharing and caring and doing things together. You know what I'm saying? It's not just one-sided, and it should not expect it to be one-sided, because it is a relationship, and without the relationship, you know, it's going to be dysfunctional if we both don't value the relationship. And we have to teach our children to value. So the fact that he doesn't call, that shows you that he hasn't really taught you the value, because he's not modeling it. I keep saying the word teach, but when I hear the word teach a lot of times, I'm asking myself, what am I doing to model that behavior? I can't blame it on my children. So you know what I did? I created a group text with all my kids in it, and we talk through the group. So they can't say they don't hear from me or they don't know what's going on, because we do everything through the group.
You don't even like texting.
I don't. And I don't do it too often. I don't text them too often either, but because I call them all the time. And they call me. You know?
But that shows a lot of care. The fact that you would do it, even though it's something as simple as a group text. The fact that that's not even something you like. You do not like
not
texting.
Texting at all, but I do it periodically. I text for events and things to put on your calendar. You know, but I don't text every day. I rather call. I call every day. I have 6 children. So I don't want to get into a group when everybody texting. It just gets, somebody may be responding to one part and we moved on in the conversation. I don't get involved in all that.
And that's difficult. Like that's for you to have 6 kids, and my father only has two. So for you to keep up with 6 kids is a lot compared to two.
Yeah. Well, I'm used to it now. I've been doing it for so long,
Yeah.
That's the key. I've been doing it for a long time. So, yep. Well, thank you for coming on, and thank you, Nick, for being a part and sharing. We will see you guys on Wednesday. Hopefully, I'll have another guest on. If not, it'll be a short commercial. That's what I normally do on Wednesdays. I just do a short commercial, encourage people to like, share, and subscribe to the channel and follow us on Facebook and on YouTube. Share. So hopefully, Dominique, you will share this with your network. How many friends do you have on Facebook, Dominique?
I have no idea. It's a lot, but
Really?
I will put this on my page. Yeah.
Yeah, share. Share. And if there's anyone like to be a guest and talk about their father and their relationship, I would love to hear it. I think everybody should write a book. That's how I feel about fathers and fatherhood and even children. Everybody has a story to tell. And thank you, Dominic, again for sharing your story, your truth. I appreciate it. And with that, we will
Thank
see
you
you
for having
guys
me.
next week. I mean, on Wednesday, not next week, Wednesday.
Thanks, everyone.
All
Be
right.
good.
Thank you. God bless.
Thank you. Bye bye.
Don't want to cut off too early because cutting off too early, I don't know if this broadcast is going to continue or not. I'm gonna have to find out about that. All righty. We're gonna say stop.